And I was just like, man, what is your problem? And this lady's walking up with her daughter to go in the gas station. He raised his head out the window and was like, your midget daughter got drunk.
Okay, mind you, I hadn't slept for like 72 hours, and I was just delirious at this point, man. We had been on the streets literally from
dusk till dawn.
Dusk till dawn, like, flying the whole city, putting up posters everywhere, you know what I mean? And I was just tired. But, again, it just goes back to that, like I was saying, like, we really didn't, there wasn't a limit, you know what I mean? It really wasn't a limit. It wasn't until I had my daughter where I was like, all right, I'm going to take some time just to be. I've done this for 20 years, and it literally became so much of, like, our lives that this cat, I would tell my fiance when we first started dating, when she came out to Sac and used to stay with me, I would tell her when he was going to call.
Wow. Yeah,
and then this cat would call, literally a couple minutes later. And I was like, or I tell her, yeah, Bush is about to come through. And he didn't call me or nothing. All of a sudden, he just show up.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I mean. It's like we were so deeply embedded with each other on doing stuff for the community that, like, it took that's all we did. I mean, he worked, and I did too at the time.
I had my little 5-hour shift a day, waiting tables, and I was making like close to damn near nothing, paying my bills, and I don't even know how I did it, as well as grabbing him when he was going through his hard times, and like.
I mean, we're talking like lights out in the apartment, like, the cats getting evicted, doing shit for the community.
We was doing stuff with nothing.
Yeah.
With literally no money.
Even the Nas show, most parents don't even realize, like, first, I did the Nas show back in '06 in 1 week, and not only did I do it in 1 week, I did it with absolutely no money. And I told him 6 months before when we did the Dead Prez show
that we were going to do that.
That we would do it. I told him, I was like, mark my words, 6 months from now we will do Nas here. And he was like, yeah, right. And then all of a sudden,
he called me.
I called him up and I'm like, hey, yo, remember what I said back at the Dead Prez show, right? And he's like, no way. Because that's his man's and everything. So that's one of his favorite artists of all time. And that was one of the most important reasons why I want to do it. And I always told Bush, I was like, I'll bring you on everything I do. I'll bless you on everything I do, and I'll make sure that if you want it and you want to do it for the right reasons, and you want to help people, you want to uplift people, you want to do something that'll make an impact down the road. It's easy to make albums. It's easy to make empty, non-content, no substance fluff. But I said, but it's hard to make an impact. It's hard to change somebody's life. It's hard to have somebody turn their whole lives around because you imparted some type of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding into them. And I told him, I was like, I'll stand with you all the way through, but you got to do it like this, man. I was like, you have it in your heart, and I think you can change people's lives, so it's up to you to want to do that. And he did. He stuck with it. He kept going at it. And I mean, from our first mixtape all the way through, it was like I think we internalized the struggle so differently than a lot of artists in our city were at that point in time, because we had a frontline view of what was happening, from everything from gentrification to racial profiling to the shutting down of spots to undercover cops, the hip hop wash, all of that stuff. We had a front row seat for all that. We saw what really was transpiring, and people thought we were paranoid. People thought
people think that we made up a lot of stories too. Ghost was there at places. Ghost is probably the only person that's ever seen me wild out in front of cops.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not to like be on some like, yeah, I did it. It was just like on some like, look, it's wrong that you're trying to do this shit.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, they were shoving people and and grabbing people, throwing them around and whatnot, and
and
there
people,
wasn't even violence. There was nothing violent going on, nothing. And then
people
the
think
cops
that
came along and kind of got violent.
People think that like we're like when we talk about this stuff that like we're making up stories or like we're trying to like. I don't know, do some like 1970s, 60s type stuff. And it's not even like that. It's on some real stuff. Like, we went through this stuff, and I write about it or I'll talk about it, and people like look at me like I'm crazy. And it's not, and that's not the truth. Like.
But they did. A lot of people did at that time. I mean, there's a lot of things like Neighborhood Watch, like MLS, like a lot of people who came up after us, really responded to that at that time. At that time, people were listening. They were like getting educated on stuff, and it's crazy too because a lot of these cats, like Random Abilities, got their start with me. Fifth Avenue, a lot of them cats got their first shows with me. You know what I'm saying? And And then I always told cats over and over and again, understand this, as a whole, we have a greater impact over all of this stuff that's happening in the city. Spread apart and marginalized, we ain't going to be able to do nothing with the city. Not only will they not be able to do nothing with the city, we won't be able to go anywhere else for that matter and change anything for that matter.
And I honestly think that, like, the Sac Hates Hip Hop thing, like, cut everything in between. Yeah. But it brought everything back. Yeah. So it's like,
well, it's like I told him when he was calling me and he was asking me advice on this, and you know, a lot of people were like, yo, they knew it was me. They knew it was me, and you know, I mean, people who really knew him and knew us knew it was me that was really behind this album being put out and everything else. But I you know, told him, hey, dude, I'm not in this, you know. I was like, you call me and we talk about it, whatever, but I'm gonna stay out of this one, because if you take the helm on this and you do this, I'm telling you right now, I'll tell you who your enemies are going to be right now. I'll tell you exactly who your enemies are going to be.
True.
And it ended up being just that. Yeah. And I said, but in a lot of ways it needed to be said, because the fact is that when you go to places like Sacramento and you see the socioeconomic situations of those places, and you see how police treat people out there, and you see how the community of hip hop is treated out there. I mean, sure, you know, everything from Soul Collective mysteriously burning down and everything. And this was a community center out there that actually only focused on doing things in arts for the kids. And it just, you know, all of a sudden, you know, while gentrification was going on in Del Paso Heights, this place mysteriously burns down all of a sudden. And it took them several years to recuperate just to find a new place. And I give those cats a lot of props, because again, those were other people in the community who would not stop just because the city posed resistance against us. They were willing to push themselves even further than that and go even further than that. And that's what I'm saying, is like, we as hip hop culture are birthed from what is the struggle, what is oppression, what is, you know, I mean, even b-boying alone, you know, is the idea of breaking out of your condition. So they dance to break out of their condition.
Break out of your environment.
You know what I'm saying? So I was like, you can't be surprised. And I used to tell them all the time, you can't be surprised by this stuff, man. You know, we're going to be the biggest enemies of all of this in the first place, because we're the one people are telling people exactly what they need to do in order to rise up against all of this. And, you know, and I mean, I got charged with inciting a riot, falsifying information, freaking, and all for being on the light rail. Yeah.
Wow.
Undercovers pulled me over on the light rail, freaking took me off, took my ID, took all my tickets and everything. Then I go to court, to a traffic court, and the judge is bringing up charges on me of inciting a riot, falsifying information, and like some other shit. And I was just
my man was on the light rail station trying to get somewhere.
Yeah, just trying to get home. You know what I mean? And they pulled me off, fingered me out, pulled me off the light rail and everything. Told me that I didn't have an ID. Told me I didn't have a valid ticket and everything. I go to court. Told
him that he didn't have a valid ID, and then took his ID.
And then when I went to court, and this is the kicker, I go to court to beat this traffic ticket on the light rail or whatever, and then they tell me, oh yeah, we're also doing, you're being charged with falsifying information, inciting a riot, and one other thing, I forget what it was, but essentially they turn around and the judge asked the cop, she was like, do you see blah 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 blah, my real name, do you see him in this courtroom right now? And the cop goes, yeah. And he's all, the judge goes, where is he? Well, point him out to me. She points right at me. He's sitting right there. The cop and the judge goes, so how did he falsify information? Wow. You know, so people, I'm sitting there like, okay, I'm done. This is it. You know, they're going to wipe this all off. At the end of it, the judge, who has a file this. No, y'all can't. I put my hands really far apart from each other.
From like the microphone to like the desk.
There's a thick file that they have on me, and he goes, based on the information that is being presented to me today, I rule in favor of the state, and we're charging you with obstructing justice, falsifying information, and inciting a riot. Yeah. All off of a light rail ticket. So that's what I mean. Like it wasn't just on some, oh, you guys are doing some hip-hop music and you're anti-establishment. It was on, you guys are doing hip-hop music that's actually pointing out real stuff that was going on. Yeah. And we don't want that. Not, especially not in this city. You go do that in the Bay Area. Yeah. You go do that in LA somewhere, not in Sacramento. So that's when they had the meeting of the 13s and everything else, and they started actually combating and attacking the scene all over again like they did in the 90s.
I don't mean to cut you off, but it's time to go, kids. Oh, man, that went by fast. So, shout out to everybody who tuned in. www.specialsundays.podomatic.com is where you can find it. Next week, Miss Mariana, thank you.
Oh, hey. Woo! That's Mariana. That town representative.
You know, I do what I do, and that's what I do. Thank you guys for coming in.
Oh, it's
no problem. See you guys tonight.
People's Revolution.
Yes.
See you guys tonight at the Milk Bar, Haight Street, $5, 21 and up.
Bring tomatoes.
See you there.